You're now watching Wayback Wednesday, sponsored by Davenport Auto Park, the ride of your life. And also sponsored by Flores Glass, serving the area since 1977 with residential and commercial work.
Well, welcome folks to another episode of Wayback Wednesday. I'm Randy Adcock, so glad you could be with us tonight. During preparing for this week's show, I started out in one path, if you will, and as sometimes happens, I got sidetracked on another path, and so I abandoned the first path and took all down the second path. If you watch the show every week, you know we often talk about areas of commerce. They're typically in a neighborhood. There's typically 2 or 3 stores, convenience store type, little grocery store, gas station maybe, perhaps a laundromat. But these little areas of commerce popped up all over Rocky Mount, all through Rocky Mount's existence. There's certainly less, there's less of them out there now than there were years ago for a number of reasons. The big box stores and department stores and the Walmarts and Kmarts and so forth all but put these little small mom and pop businesses out of business. But there was a time, and certainly in the 40s and 50s and 60s in Rocky Mount, where I won't say building codes were lax, but they were certainly less restrictive, and it was much easier for someone to start their own business. If you could, if you had a lot beside your house, if it was your lot, it made it easier. But even if it wasn't your lot, if you could acquire a bank loan, for example, and buy the lot next door to your house and put a building up on it, it didn't have to be very fancy, just anything to house a little business. A lot of little small mom and pop businesses got started just that way, by putting up a structure on a piece of property beside their home. And so over a couple of years of doing this show, I'm always fascinated when I run across one of these little areas of commerce that I was not familiar with before, because it does kind of bring all this together in my mind. These little areas of commerce help Rocky Mount grow, and in many cases they provided a very much needed business in the area, in the community, in that neighborhood. But in some cases, they actually became quite profitable for the owners. So anyway, I'm born and raised in Rocky Mount, been here all my life other than a stint in the Navy some years back. But and I thought I knew roughly where about every street was in this city. Not that I visit all of them on a regular basis, but I was pretty sure I could tell you, but with pretty close proximity where any street was, you named me. But I fooled myself this week getting ready for tonight's show. I really thought I knew where Madison Street was until I looked on a map and I realized I didn't know where Madison Street was at all. I had no clue where Madison Street was. It certainly was not where I thought it was. I knew of a Madison Street, but when I got to looking on a map, I realized it wasn't where I thought it was. And what got me on this tangent I mentioned to you a while ago, I stumbled across the ad for Madison Seafood. Now, those of you who have not been here in the last, or only been here less than 10 years, probably don't remember Madison, don't know anything about Madison. But when I was a teenager, it was certainly one of my favorite places to get fresh seafood from. And so as I got to researching Madison Seafood and the history of the restaurant and indeed the business, because it started out as a market, Madison Seafood Market, as opposed to a restaurant. But I learned some things I didn't know, so hopefully tonight you will too. Before we get into that, I want to take just a moment. Had a viewer after last week's show bring me a box of newspapers, and I've been going through those little by little. There's some great old articles in there, and I'll even try to mention, the box is this big, and this big, and it's just cram-packed full of newspapers. So I'll go in there and grab one out, and I'll thumb through it and sit it down and grab it over and thumb through it. So anyway, anytime you run across something like old magazines, old books, especially old newspapers you want to get rid of, before you throw them in the trash, give me a buzz. You can call me here at the station, 407-1111, anytime during the show. My cell phone is 883-1123, again, 883-1123. And I'll be glad to take that kind of stuff off your hands. You've heard me say before, I have a vision, if you will, of one day seeing a Rocky Mount History Museum. I tried to get it off the ground myself a few years ago, and I've not given up on it, don't get me wrong, but I just ran into a bunch of brick walls and had to temporarily put it on hold. But I still have that idea, that thought in mind that one day we will have a true history museum here in Rocky Mount. And so I'm trying to acquire and collect these things of historical nature, and certainly magazines, newspapers, and so forth fit that bill. So thank you to the viewer that brought that stuff by my office and dropped it off to me. Also want to mention another quick thank you to Miss Maddie Bullock. A few months ago, actually, she gave me a box full of old telephone directories. I say, they go back to, I think, 88 or so. But I've had a good time going through those. In fact, I used several of those phone books in preparing for this week's show. So thank you, Maddie, for that. I mentioned Madison Street for a reason. I stumbled across an ad, actually, and it mentioned Madison Street Seafood. And so I did some searching. I wanted to see if the building was still there, number one. And when I found a picture of the building, I thought, well, that's not the Madison Street Seafood that I remember. And so, I did some more digging, and the more I dug, the more confused I got. And so what I realized is that Madison Street Seafood has actually been in several locations over the years. And believe it or not, I found evidence of there being no less than 5 locations for Madison Street Seafood. Not all at the same time, and not all by the same owner, I should point out. Those of you who may remember Marshall and Barbara Proctor, they were running the business when I was a teenager. I knew both of them well. I knew they had 3 daughters I went to school with, Kathy, Cindy, and Terry. Sadly, Marshall and Barbara both had passed away, and it was one of the girls, Cindy, in fact, passed away some years back. But they were just great folks, had a great business, really good food, and some of my favorite meals of eating seafood were either there at one of their restaurants or going and getting a takeout, bring it home, eat it at home. So let's jump into this, Lee. We're going to start off going back to 1952. In 1952, at 421 Madison Street, there you go. Lee, item number 1, if you would. In October of 1952, this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. And it says, announcing the opening of Peterson's Seafood Market, Thursday, October 9th. And you see the layout there: shrimp, lobster, oysters, seafood, fish. We will dress and deliver. Just dial 8310. Plenty of free parking space. Peterson's Seafood Market, 421 Madison Street. Okay. One of the interesting things about this location, and I'll show you a picture in a minute of the building, there was actually 3 spaces in this building. Well, let me back up. There was actually 2 initially. 2 spaces in the building, and an addition was added on at some point later on after it got going for a while. And so in later years, there was actually 3 businesses operating in this one facility, this one building, I should say. But in 1952, the Petersons opened up Peterson's Seafood Market at 419 Madison Street. Okay, Lee, if you could, let's go then to item number 2. 6 years later, fast forward a bit, this ad appeared August of 1958, and it says, congratulations and best wishes to Carolina Concrete and Block Works on their new model home, roofing installed by Thompson Roofing and Sheet Metal Contractors. And at the very bottom of the page, you see the location is 419 Madison Street. So in 1952, 421 Madison Street was the home of Peterson Seafood Market. 6 years later, 419 Madison Street was the home for Thompson Roofing. Okay, moving along, the very next year, Lee, item number 3, if you would, in December 24th of 1959, this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and it was just simply a Christmas greeting from Thompson Roofing and Heating. There you go, and it just says Thompson Roofing and Heating, greetings for Christmas. It's time to count our blessings, to acknowledge with gratitude the loyalty of our friends, and to express appreciation and good wishes to the fine people whom we serve. So, as I said, this building started out being 2 spaces, and Peterson's Fish Market was in one part of it. Thompson Roofing was in another part of it. When I looked in the city directories trying to get a little more information about the location and businesses there, I actually stumbled across a 1963 Rocky Mount City Directory listing. And so, Lee, if you would, put up item number 4. In 1963, the Rocky Mount City Directory, and I just kind of did a screenshot of this page, and draw your attention down to the bottom of the page there, starting with 417. Leroy Peterson was a justice of the peace, and he lived right next door to this building that he built, and the address of the building was 417, 419, and then by 1963 he had added on the third part, and 421 was Peterson Seafood. So if you remember earlier, in 1952, Peterson Seafood was at it was at 421 Madison Street. But in any case, Mr. Peterson lived right next door. He occupied an office in 417 and 63. Thompson Roofing had 419. Peterson Seafood was in 421. His name was Leroy Peterson. His wife, I think, was Lucille. We'll get to her in a minute. But anyway, this was, and you can see there, 427 Madison was the Madison Street Market. It was a little grocery store there. So in this one little 1, 2, 3, 4 address span there, you see 425 was vacant. There was nothing at 425 in 1963 anyway. But 417, 419, and 421 was one building, and that housed these three businesses. The vacant lot was beside that, and then the Madison Street Market. So 4 businesses there in 1963 in that one block of Madison Street. Now, if you're not familiar with Madison Street, and like I said, I had to pull up a map to find it because, and I'll tell you in a bit why it was not where I thought it was. But if you're looking for Madison Street, you're not familiar with it, it's about 5 or 6 blocks east of Main Street. It runs between, basically between Carolina Avenue and Eastern Avenue. So it's a three block long street, so it's a little short street. And like I said, it runs roughly parallel to Main Street, but about 5 or 6 blocks off of Main Street to the east. So anyway, item number 5, Lee. This is actually the building as it appeared in 2008. Google Maps actually has this neat feature where you can look at a location, and it'll give you the option sometimes to look back as many as 10, 12 years back in the future at this one location. So this was a snapshot that was taken in 2008, and as you can see there, there's 3 spaces. To your right would be 417. In the middle would be 419, and the far left-hand side would be 421. And those were the 3 spaces that and you can see that far left-hand side was added on. That was the last addition there was put on some years after the original building was erected. Item number 6, if you could, Lee, this is the same building, just to give you a little bit newer. This was taken in 2012. And again, here it's easier to see the address because they got them in big letters on the front of each space. 417 to the right, 419 in the middle, 421 on the left. But this is the way it appeared in 2012. I'm not even sure if there was any business in any one of the 3 spaces when this picture was taken, but some enterprising person got the building in 2022, dressed it up a bit, and lo and behold, item number 7, if you would, Lee. This is the way the building looked in 2022. Kind of grabs your attention now. Something about the red, white, and blue there. Well, primarily blue with a little bit of red trim at the bottom, and white, you see a little bit of white there too. But this, again, 417, 420, 419, and 421 Madison Street. And so you can barely catch a glimpse of the house to the right, which would have been Mr. Peterson's house. He lived in that house to the right there and built this building sometime in the early 1950s and owned it for several years, in fact. Okay, Lee, item number 8. Let's fast forward a bit to 1964. In 1964, this ad appeared, and it says, announcing Carolina's and Virginia's newest Norge service and parts distributor, Jay's Electric Service. Now, this picture kind of threw me for a minute because it's a picture there of the coin-operated dry cleaning and laundry, and obviously that's not what this ad is for. It's an ad for this Jay's Electric Service at 419 Madison Street. So this is the second business. Now Thompson Roofing has moved on. They've left the premises, and Jay's Electric Service has moved in. And of course, if you look a little further down, it says Jay Atkinson's owner and manager. And then beneath that, it says Alan Mims Ford is happy to serve you with fine Ford products. And at the very bottom of the ad is Alan Mims. So I'm not quite sure why they had the picture of the corn cleaning place there, unless maybe Jay's Electric Service serviced coin-operated laundry machine. That's the only thing I could think of. I first thought maybe he was an auto parts distributor, but I don't think so. And it may have just been coincidence that Alan Mims Ford had an ad at the bottom of the page. But anyway, in 1964, Jay's Electric Service was occupying 419 Madison Street, which again would have been that center of the three spaces. It would have been in the center there where Thompson Roofing was previously. Okay, Lee. Item number 9. Fast forward to 1967, December 1967. This ad appeared for the Madison Street Market. This was a grocery store, not the seafood market, but this was a grocery store. If you remember, 417, 419, and 421 was the three spaces in the building. There was a vacant lot, and then there was this grocery store. This building, by the way, is now gone because I did a search for it. It's a vacant lot there now where this building used to be. But in December 1967, the Madison Street Market was in business. And you see there, dressed fryers, 27 cents a pound, pig's feet, 79 cents for 5 pounds. You could get 5 pounds of pigtails for $1, 5 pounds of neck bones for 89 cents, fatback 5 pounds for $1. It's hard to believe prices were this cheap, particularly as related to how expensive everything is now. But anyway, again, this is a little community supermarket. As I said earlier, Madison Street's only 3 blocks long. But Carolina Avenue is at one end of it, Eastern Avenue at the other end of it. So I can imagine probably within a 3 or 4, maybe even a 5 block radius of this store, people would walk. Prior to the time where everybody had a car, a lot of folks in these little communities would walk back and forth to the store, to get necessities, everything from bread, milk, toilet paper, whatever they needed. And so it was really convenient to have these little areas of commerce again all over the place. Okay, item number 10, if we could, Lee. I mentioned Leroy Peterson earlier, the man who built the building. This was his wife. Her name was Lucille. And in February of 1975, we're jumping forward quite a bit here now, Peterson's Seafood Market placed this ad in Rocky Mount, Tuckahoe. You see there, fresh daily fish, shrimp, crab meat oysters, located just off the 400 block of East Thomas Street behind Weathers Florist. Okay, and you see at the bottom there the address, 421 Madison Street. I mentioned earlier that I thought I knew where Madison Street was, and I found out when I was doing the research for the night show that I did not. And we'll get to in just a minute why I thought I knew where it was and did not. But I just realized it's time for our first commercial break. So Lee, bring it back to me if you would. We're going to grab a quick commercial break, folks, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Petersons and the Proctors and Madison Seafood and Madison Market, and show you some pictures too. And so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern. We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't arise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
And we're back. If you're just tuning in, you're watching Wayback Wednesday. We're talking about Madison Street and a little area of commerce that sprang up over there back in the early 1950s. Mr. Leroy Peterson built a little building over there, ended up adding on to it, had a couple, 3 businesses in there at one time. He and his wife ran it, a couple of businesses in there, in fact. And at some point, I think I saw a reference to, and I should have saved that, I didn't, but Mr. Peterson passed away and his wife had the property for some time. Before we move forward in the picture, I want to just real quickly, Lee, go back to that item number 10 we just had up on the screen before we went to break. This picture of Miss Peterson. There you go. If you'll notice, the address is 421 Madison Street, and in the bottom right-hand corner, you see the phone number, 446-8310. So remember those two things. 421 Madison is the address of Peterson Seafood. The phone number is 446-8310. Okay. This was in 1975. 3 years later, Lee, item number 11, if you would, Peterson Seafood Market by 1978 had moved. Instead of being at 421 Madison Street, they were now at 419 Madison Street. Strangely enough, they kept the same phone number, 446-8310, but you see now that the owner of the seafood restaurant is no longer Lucille Peterson. Charlie Mills bought the business. So in 1978, Peterson Seafood, he kept the name, but he moved it. Not sure why he felt the need to move the business to the very next door. Maybe it was larger, who knows? Maybe got a better deal on the rent there. But in any case, he moved next door. Charlie Mills bought the business and ran it, continued to keep the name of Peterson Seafood Market and the same phone number. So that was 1978. So at some point, like I said, Mr. Peterson passed away. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
All right. I've been listening diligently with what you're talking about Peterson Seafood, and I knew them people very well. Lucille and Leroy Peterson. He was the Justice of the Peace. I think you've already said that.
Right.
He had a nickname of Scrooge Peterson. Later on, they moved into about the 500 block of Mercer Street over there in the neighborhood where I grew up.
Okay.
They had one child, a daughter named Lynn, who married a person named Michael Stanley Smith that finished high school with me. They got married just after after Lynn graduated from Rocky Mountain High School about 1965. All right, go ahead.
Okay. All right, appreciate that information. All right.
Get away from it, but go back to where you were.
Okay, that's all right. Thank you for calling. Okay, so anyway, like I said, by 1978, Charlie Mills had bought the business, at least the seafood business anyway, and was running it and operating same phone number and same business name. Okay, fast forward now all the way to 1987. In 1987, Madison Street Seafood Market was listed at 419 Madison Street. Same phone number, by the way, 446-8310. Oh, by the way, Lee, item number 12, if you would. I should have told you that earlier. My apologies. There you go. So this ad appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram August the 20th, 1987. So I don't know exactly when Marshall and Barbara Proctor bought the business, but I'm fairly certain that by 87 they had it. And the reason I say that is if you look at the bottom of this ad here, it says Madison Street Seafood Market, 419 Madison Street, same phone number, and Madison 2 is at 2000 Stone Rose Drive. Okay, so again, this is 1987. And I'm still, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking I know where Madison Street is. When I was researching for this week's show, I still thought I knew where Madison Street was. And in fact, in my mind, I had been to Madison Street. I would later find out I'd never been to Madison Street in my life. But anyway, I'll tell you why why I thought that. But 2000 Stone Rose Drive, of course, that's the Kmart shopping plaza. That's a little building there just to the right of the Ford used car lot. Kentucky Fried Chicken was in there for a while. But by this time, Barbara and Marshall Proctor had the business. Their girls were working there. I think all three of them worked there, in fact. They had a good business by all accounts. The food was good. I ate in the restaurant several times. This was actually the year I got out of the Navy, and my wife and I would go there and eat quite often. Really good food, but we always went to the Stone Rose Drive location. Okay, Lee, if you would, item number 13 now. The very next year, October 1988. Here's what threw me for a major loop. Now you see Sharpsburg has got a Madison Seafood. This is called Madison Seafood 3. The address there is Highway 301 South, Sharpsburg, formerly Anita's Restaurant. This is also the same building, by the way, where Farmer's Restaurant used to be, if you remember that. Farmer's Restaurant was there, Anita's Restaurant was there. Madison Seafood had space there for a while too. Now, it might be hard to see, but at the very bottom of this ad, can you zoom in, Lee, on the very bottom of the ad? This is what really messed my mind up when I stumbled across this right here, because in my mind, I thought I knew where Madison Street was. And in my mind, I remember going to Madison Street Seafood, and I knew I had gone to it by turning off of West Thomas Street, a block or two from the intersection of Thomas Street and Gray Street. So when I looked at a map and saw where Madison Street was, I said, wait a minute, that's not where I went when I went to Madison Street. Where was I going when I went to Madison Street, or what I thought was Madison Street? The very bottom of the page here, you see there, they list Madison Street, Fish Market, and Takeout off West Thomas Street. And look at the phone number, 446-8310. So by this time, this is, by the way, October 1988, they had obviously closed the location on Madison Street. There was no more business on Madison Street. They had moved, and they had the location at Stone Rose Drive. They had the location in Sharpsburg, and they had this location they identified as being off West Thomas Street. Now, I went there a couple of times, and for the life of me, I cannot remember the name of the street. It was, if you're coming from downtown Rocky Mount headed west on Thomas Street, as you cross through the intersection of Thomas Street and Gray Street, I want to say it was the first or second block to the right. You take a right and go back up in there a block or two, kind of over Holly Street area, back up in there. And that's where I went a couple of times, in fact, to get a seafood dinner to go. And so all these years, I was thinking that that's where Madison Street was located, that little street that I went to back up in there. To this day, I don't remember, I'm not sure I could even get back to where I went those couple of times I went to pick up a tray of food to go. But I thought that was Madison Street until getting ready for tonight's show. And I realized that where I was going, this area that referred to here is off West Thomas Street. And by the way, this was the only ad that I was able to find that listed the Madison Street Fish Market and Takeout off West Thomas Street. So maybe somebody remembers when it was there in this little area I'm talking about off of West Thomas Street, and remembers what the name of that street was. If you do, give us a call. 407-1111 is the number. But this blew my mind when I realized that what I thought was Madison Street was not at all Madison Street, and indeed Madison Street was all the way across town. And I've never been to Madison Street that I know of. So anyway, a little bit of clarification needed there in my mind to sort all that out. Oh, we got a call. Let's get this call. Hello, caller, you on the air?
I think at one time Marshall Proctor and his wife had that Madison Street seafood restaurant over there on Pine Street, right there, just a few doors down from where the original Ann's Donut Shop was.
There was the Atlantic Seafood there. I remember that place. I bought seafood there too. Now, I don't know whether Marshall and Barbara owned that or not. They very well could have.
I think you need to go on down away from where Atlantic Seafood was on on North Pine Street, like you're going on around to where the hot dog stand was. And there was a restaurant down there on the right.
Yes, I ate there many times. That was C&L Takeout.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
That's what comes to my mind.
They may have had that. Frank and Barbara, I'm drawing a blank, but I knew those folks that ran that place there for a while. And it's possible that Barbara and Marshall could have owned that too. I don't know that.
Right.
But I know where you're talking about. They had good food too. Okay, thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay. All right, so moving along now, you know, I think it took the vision and the effort that Barbara and Marshall put into the business to really make it grow. That's not taking nothing away from the Petersons, don't get me wrong. Let me hang the phone, there we go. Taking nothing away from the Petersons when they had the business, or Charlie Mills when he had the business for that matter. But by opening up multiple locations, certainly the Stone Rose Drive location was a very busy location. I think the Sharpsburg restaurant did well for a while. But in 1988, October, in fact, that last picture we saw was from October of 1988. And by the end of the month, the same year, October 30th, 88, I just realized a mistake of something I said a minute ago, because, and this is really wild here. Lee, if you would, item number 14, this ad appeared October the 30th of 88. The previous ad appeared, I think, October the 9th of 88. But this ad here, if you look at the bottom of the page of the ad, it says Madison Seafood, 419 Madison Street, with the same phone number, 446-8310. And then Madison 2 is 2000 Stone Rose Drive. And Madison Seafood 3 is, of course, over in Sharpsburg. So I'm not sure how they managed to have a place off of Thomas Street with the same phone number, unless, I don't know. That's kind of confusing to me there. It may have been a misprint too. Maybe they meant to put the address of the new location over off Thomas Street. But in any case, they are showing in this ad that appeared October 30th, 1988 in the Rocky Mount Telegram. They're showing all three locations, and that phone number, the 446-8310, is indeed the same phone number that was at the original Madison Street location. So again, this could have been a misprint. Maybe they meant to put the address of off of Thomas Street, wherever that street was, back up in there. Or maybe they had this place at the same time they had the place over on Thomas Street or off Thomas Street. But anyway, okay, let's move along, Lee. Item number 15, if you would. This was something I had forgotten about entirely. In August 25th, 1989, this ad appeared, Madison Seafood at Golden East Mall, offering the same delicious seafood dinners and home-cooked vegetables you have grown to love from Madison Seafood. Ask about our family packs, located in the food court at Golden East Mall. You see there's a whole different number there, 972-7817. I'd forgotten that they were at the mall. They had a booth out there. I believe it was somewhere along the area there where the Chinese or the Japanese food is there on the food court now. But indeed, they were, for a while anyway, at Golden East Mall. I didn't find but one reference to them being at Golden East Mall, however. This was in 1989. This ad appeared here, August of 1989. So I don't know how long they were there. Apparently, it was probably not a very, very good move. But in any case, they were at Golden East Mall, one of the 5 locations that I remember that they were at some point. Okay, Lee, item number 16. By March of 1994, this ad appeared, and this is of course, the Stone Rose Drive location. March of '94, this ad appeared. Please visit Madison Seafood for a most delicious, enjoyable meal. We have a variety of seafoods and vegetables, baked stuffed flounder, crab legs, soft shell crabs, and much more. And you see the address there is listed as 2000 Stone Rose Drive. This, of course, this picture was taken inside the restaurant. I remember the little booth there. I probably sat at that one a few times underneath there. It was not a very big place, as I recall, and didn't take much to get it full of customers, which was probably good. They did have a drive-through, however, and we'll show you a picture in a minute of an occurrence that occurred in a drive-through that had them shut down for a while. Item number 17, if you would, Lee. In August of 1999, we're going to go back over to Madison Street now, and somebody, and I don't know who, obviously by this time it was not the Petersons. I don't think it was Charlie Mills, but I don't know who it was, but somebody named Bill opened up Bill's Seafood and Takeout, Madison Street Fish Market. You see in parentheses there, at 419 Madison Street. And you look at the phone number, 446-8310. That's the same phone number that's been in that space now for, golly, 20 years or so. It was back in 1975, had the same number, 446-8310. So, you know, seafood markets have traditionally done pretty well. You know, fish is a lot of people like fish, like fresh seafood, and so maybe some enterprising person said, you know what, there was a fish market here for a long time. Maybe if I open one up, it'll be profitable too. I don't know how long Bill's Seafood made a go of it there. This was the only ad that I ran across of another seafood restaurant other than Peterson's or Madison's being there at Madison Street. But indeed, in 1999, Bill's Seafood did open up. Now, how long he was there, I do not know, but he was there for a while in 1999. I mentioned about a drive-through occurrence, problem, if you will. On July the 4th of 2000, this article appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram. Lee, if you would, item number 18. This tells the story of a fire that broke out, believe it or not, in the parking lot, in the drive-through lane. And what you're looking at here is the side of the Madison Seafood Restaurant on Stone Rose Drive. This is not the front entrance, this is the side, the drive-through. This fellow pulls up in this van and it's smoking. It catches on fire. They give him a fire extinguisher from inside the restaurant. Hey, your van's on fire. Well, he jumps out the van and takes off. Rather than try to put the fire out, he takes off. The van bursts into flame, the building catches on fire. They later catch the guy. He was driving a stolen van, and the whole thing's kind of comical. A buddy of his stole the van from his own friend, stole the van. The guy was supposed to be going to buy it. Instead of buying it, he stole it, drove it to get some fish from Madison Seafood. The van catches on fire, catches the building on fire. He was given a fire extinguisher to put it out, and rather than do that, he jumps out and takes off. So anyway, the article talks about, the headline reads, "Waiting on Hush Puppy, Driver Loses Lunch." And it tells a story about what happened there. The guy was eventually caught, as I said. He was charged, several charges, in fact, not the least of which was theft of a motor vehicle. So anyway, all right, Lee, I tell you, if you would bring it back to me, it's time for our next commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about another version of Madison Seafood. They moved yet again. There was another version, if you will, another location, another owner, and same great food. But anyway, when we come back from the break, we'll talk about that, show you some more pictures. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on more Wayback Wednesday.
I'm Daniel Moss, owner of Cornerstone Funeral Home, and I'd like to invite you and your family to give our family an opportunity to serve you in your time of need. And we offer a full line of funeral services, everything from visitations to graveside services to cremations on site with a live crematory, as well as a banquet hall to meet the catering needs of our families that we serve. We offer catering service, we offer refreshments prior to visitations and services of our family, and we want to invite you to come and experience the difference here at Cornerstone Funeral Home.
When faced with special care needs for elderly or disabled loved ones, families want compassionate, comforting care. That's Tender Touch Home Care Services' goal, providing the level of care we would expect for our own. With over 10 years of home care excellence, Tender Touch provides an array of services that keeps your loved one at home. From personal care, light housekeeping, errands, and meal preparation, to our private duty care program, which combines all of our home care offerings in one package.
Tender Touch Home Care Services, where your needs are our concern.
We're in our 18th year of practice at the Hammer Chiropractic Center, and we've seen over 15,000 different people in the Rocky Mount area. 40% of headaches actually come from a neck problem. Many patients come in taking multiple aspirin, over-the-counter medications and such a day, and we can get you to stop doing that and actually fix the problem so the headaches don't arise anymore. A lot of people think chiropractic hurts. It does not. Most of the people come in and they feel great when they leave.
I'm Daniel.
We're back. During the break, I had a thought come to me. Eric had called a minute ago and mentioned the restaurant on Pine Street. C&L Takeout was the name of the restaurant. Frank Collins ran that place with his wife. I'm not sure where the L came from. I know the C was Frank Collins, and like I said, he and his wife and their son Mike run that place for a number of years. Whether Marshall and Barbara ever owned it, I honestly do not know. It's certainly possible they did own that building. I mean, the restaurant. The building itself was owned by Joe Allen. Joe ran, speaking of area of commerce, Joe had that whole building there. He had the J-Mart there on the left-hand side of the building, which catered to all the mill workers over at Burlington Mills and Rocky Mount Mills and up and down Pine Street and Ridge Street and the whole area back over in there. He sold heating oil to the area. He ran a heating oil business, Allen Oil Company. And of course, the restaurant, I think there was more than one restaurant in there, in fact. In addition to C&L, I want to say there was another one in there too for a good while. But in any case, Joe Allen owned that whole building. But Frank Collins and his wife is who I remember. I ate there many times, great food there. Okay, before the break, I mentioned that there had been another location, another revision, if you will, of Madison Seafood. And in 2004, and I believe, I may be wrong here, but I believe they were a Korean couple, bought the business and opened it up in the building that is currently occupied by El Jimador or El Jimador, depending on your Mexican pronunciation of the word. And that's on Lawrence Circle. It's over off 301 across from Bojangles, and on the other side of 301 from Bojangles, back up in there next to the creek, back up in there. Like I said, it's now a Mexican restaurant. But in 2004, Lee, item number 19, if you would, put that up on the screen for us there. This ad appeared mentioning the grand opening of the grand reopening of Madison Seafood. And you see it says hot, fresh food daily, drive-through up an additional 30 minutes. 2181 Lawrence Circle is the address of the building. And it's hard to see in this picture, but it did say Madison Seafood above the door on both sides of that area up top there. And so anyway, 2004 is when they opened up there. Now, in 2005, this next ad appeared. Lee, if you would, item number 20. This was in September of 2005. And the Rocky Mount Telegram had these, and they still do, as a matter of fact, have these best of competitions where you call in or write into Telegram and vote for your favorite restaurant or your favorite laundromat or your favorite whatever. And for 4 years running, Madison Seafood won the best seafood in the area. And this appeared 2005 when they were voted best of the best in the Rocky Mount Telegram. But it says Madison Seafood, best catfish. Thank you Rocky Mount for voting for us. We appreciate your continued patronage. And you see there 2181 Lawrence Circle is the address. But as I said, I'm not sure if it was 4 years consecutively or a total of 4 years, but 4 years. I saw an article that said that Madison Seafood 4 years had won best of, and that's pretty good record considering we've had some really good seafood in Rocky Mount over the years. Certainly Atlantis Seafood, I think, won it too a couple of times or more. But there's been some really good seafood restaurants around, but Madison won it 4 times. It may have been a record, it may not, I don't know, but it was good food nonetheless. Item number 21, if you would, Lee, and this was taken in 2012. I mentioned earlier that you could go back and look at pictures from this is from Google Street Images here, and so there was actually a 2022 same image, but it gave me the option to go back and look all the way back to 2012, and when I did, this is what appeared. So you can see now Madison Seafood above the door there on both the front, left and right facing of the entranceway there. But anyway, this was in 2012, and sadly in 2013 the restaurant closed. When they closed their doors, they put a sign on the door that said closing temporarily, and the thought was that they were indeed just closing temporarily. It was January of 2013. In fact, Lee, item 22, if you would, put that up for our viewers. This article and picture appeared. It says Madison Seafood shuts doors, reopening date undetermined. And it goes on to say a popular seafood restaurant in Rocky Mount has closed. Madison Seafood Restaurant closed on New Year's Eve. Some people who received gift cards to the restaurant as holiday presents contacted the Rocky Mount Telegram Speak Up and questioned whether they would be able to use the cards. A sign on the door of the restaurant states, Madison Seafood has temporarily closed until February. Thank you for your patience and understanding. Restaurant co-owner, M-E-E, I guess pronounced Me, and her last name is Rowe, R-O, Me Rowe, said in a telephone interview on Monday morning that an exact reopening date has not been established, but she said they are reopening, and the gift cards people purchased over the holidays can be used then. Rowe owns the restaurant with her husband, Seung Rowe. And she goes on to say, my husband is real sick, she said. I don't know what date the restaurant will reopen, maybe the end of February. It says several employees of the Madison Seafood have applied for jobs at Mayflower. So anyway, this was in January the 8th to be exact, of 2013, that the restaurant closed its doors, and apparently had all intentions of opening back up, maybe perhaps by the next month. Okay, sadly that didn't happen. In April of 2013, Lee, item number 23 if you would, in April of 23, the decision was made that they would close up, and this picture appeared, and the caption says, a sign posted on the door of Madison Seafood at 2181 Lawrence Circle after it closed on New Year's Eve, stating that it was temporarily closed until February, has been taken down. So I'm not sure, I don't know, her husband was sick, I don't know if he passed away or if he was just unable to continue running the business, but for whatever reasons, Madison Seafood never opened back up at 2181 Lawrence Circle, sadly. Okay, you know, before we leave this topic, I just want to, I did a little bit of research. As I said, I knew Barbara and Marshall Proctor. I knew their three girls. They were all fine people. Barbara was born November 24th, 1936. Sadly, she passed away November the 10th, 1998. I'm sorry, that was, I can't read my own writing. That was Marshall. Marshall had, and I forgot the name of it, he had a kind of a rare condition, a disease, whatever. He was only 61 when he passed away. But yeah, Marshall was born in 1936, passed away in 1998. Barbara was born June the 25th, 1939. That was a year Gone with the Wind came out, and The Wizard of Oz both, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, she passed away June the 4th of 2013. They were married January 14th, 1956 at the St. Paul Methodist Church. That's down on South Church Street. In 1957, they were living at 332 East Thomas Street, which ironically is right down the street from Madison Street. It's in the same general area, so they were familiar with this area. By 1960, they were living at 1028 South Franklin Street. In 1960, up to 1963 anyway, Marshall was working as a lab technician at Shotland Mills, which was at 1624 South Gray Street, and they were living at 239 Dunn Street. By 1968, they were living on Beverly Road, that's out off Meadowbrook out there. And so in the 1988 Carolina Telephone Directory, Madison Seafood was listed as being at 419 Madison Street. And so anyway, like I said, they had a good run at it. You know, it's always sad when a business has to close due to a death in the family. And I'm not sure how much longer after Marshall passed away that the business stayed in operation. But I don't think it was too much longer before it was sold anyway. I don't have an exact date there, but I think Barbara and the girls tried to run it for a while. Again, I'm just not sure how long that was. But anyway, I had many a good seafood meal there. I'm sure many of you did too. And again, they were just good people, and it was really interesting to read about the family and about the history of the restaurant, and particularly that area of commerce. There's that phrase again, area of commerce over on Madison Street. I'm going to go riding this week when I get a chance and see if I can find that location off of West Thomas Street, where I went at least twice, I know, and picked up seafood from Madison Street Seafood. That's what it was called, and thought I was going to Madison Street when I went there. I feel foolish now admitting that, because I thought I was on Madison Street and was, golly, several miles from Madison Street. Anyway, we've only got a few minutes left, but I found some pictures, and these are in no particular order, no particular date necessarily, but I found it odd. While I was doing some research for the show this week, I stumbled across something that I was not aware. Maybe some of you knew this, but I did not. Bugs Behringer's wife, Dorothy, was a photographer in her own right, and she took quite a few pictures, primarily of people. She took wedding photographs, for example. She took baby pictures. She took graduation pictures, but rather than do landscape scenes and buildings and things of that nature, like her husband and like Charlie Killebrew would often do, Dorothy seemed to gravitate more toward taking pictures of people, as I said. And so I found some neat pictures that she had taken, and I also found some pictures that James Reed, who worked with Bugs Behringer, some pictures that James had taken too. So I've got, I don't know, 8 or 10, we'll kind of go through these as we run out of time here. But Lee, if you would, let's go to item number 24. In July of 1949, this picture appeared in the Rocky Mount Telegram, and there was a competition called the Miss Rural Youth, and it says Lois Jean Turner of Rocky Mount, Route 2, shown in the center, was chosen as Miss Rural Youth at Rocky Mount Thursday in a program for farm use sponsored by the Rocky Mount Junior Chamber of Commerce in cooperation with the farm and home agents of Nash and Edgecombe counties. Peggy Skinner of Whitaker's Route 1, shown on the right, took second place. Jean Lanier of Rocky Mount, Route 1, on the left, was placed third. These very, very attractive young ladies here. Any one of them, I'm sure, would have been a wonderful princess, queen, whatever the title was, Miss Rural Youth. But anyway, in July 1949, James Reed took this picture. So anyway, like I said, he worked for Bugs Behringer. I also found evidence of some of James Reed's photography work appearing in the News and Observer, which surprised me. And it would often say, photo by James Reed of Rocky Mount. And I found several pictures in the News and Observer that were pictures that James Reed had taken. Okay, Lee, item number 25, if you would. I mentioned Dorothy took pictures of people primarily. And this is a terrible picture. I apologize. I'd love to see an original of this image to see. I'm sure this lady was beautiful. But anyway, Azalea Princess. By the way, this was March of 1954 this picture was taken. And this was taken by Dorothy Behringer. And the caption reads, Elizabeth Van, blonde daughter of Mr. and Mrs. John Van of Rocky Mount, is representing Rocky Mount in the Azalea Festival in Wilmington. She was elected as princess in an election held Tuesday morning at the Rocky Mount Senior High School. So Elizabeth Van, daughter of John Van, was selected to represent Rocky Mount in the Azalea Festival in Wilmington, and Dorothy Behringer took this picture of her. Excuse me. Okay, Lee. Item number 26, December 1954. This is, again, not a great picture. I do apologize. It's hard to tell here, but what this is one of his real good, feel-good picture here. The gentleman sitting there is named Benny Thornell, and it says, one of the happiest. Benny Thornell of Rocky Mount probably was one of the happiest people during the Christmas season. A cripple since birth, Thornell received a motorized wheelchair as a Christmas present from the citizens of Rocky Mount. The drive was sponsored by the Traffic Division of the Police Department, and contributions were received from civic clubs and individuals. Lieutenant Jimmy Robinson presents the title to Thornell. So this appeared in the paper December 30th, 1954, when Mr. Benny Thornell was presented with his brand new electric wheelchair. How about that? Moving right along, item number 27, Lee. This appeared in a Nashville Graphic, of all places. Nashville Graphic, October 6, 1955. It's hard to make out the people there. You do see the WCEC banner in the back right-hand, top-hand corner of your screen there. Radio station WCEC was present. But this is neat. Here's the caption. It says, "Snip went the scissors. US 301 bypass west of Rocky Mount officially was opened in a brief ceremony Tuesday. Dal Alford left, chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, was master of ceremonies. Ginger Romey, I think that's Romey, it's kind of hard to read, in the center, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Ben Romey, cut the ribbon with the assistance of Governor Luther Hodges, who was on the right. Several hundred persons attended the opening of the 9.2-mile bypass, which will carry traffic around Rocky Mount." So October 6, 1955 was when the 301 bypass officially opened up, directing traffic around Rocky Mount and unfortunately killing a lot of businesses that had previously been thriving up and down 301 Business or Church Street in Rocky Mount. Have we got time to leave for a couple more? Item number 28, July 1959. This picture caption reads, "Supply plentiful. The tank truck of the Sharpsburg Fire Department has attracted a lot of attention with its sign, 'Have water, will travel.' The Sharpsburg volunteers have been active this summer in extinguishing fires in rural areas of Nash County and the vicinity of Sharpsburg." This picture was taken by James Reed also, July 1959. But we got two more real quick. We'll knock these out. We'll call tonight. December 1960. Santa Claus here. Time is near. There are only 3 shopping days until Christmas, and Tom and William Bennett Jr., sons of Mr. and Mrs. William Bennett of Rocky Mount, want to make sure that Santa Claus doesn't forget them. They brought along a long list to show Santa this year. This photo was by Dorothy Behringer also. And finally, item number 30 tonight, from January of 1980, the rectory for the Our Lady of Perpetual Help was located on South Franklin Street in 1950. The late Father Charles McLaughlin was in charge. He was a bishop in Tampa, Florida at the time of his death. This photo was taken by James Reed, and it says 1950, so I'm guessing James Reed took it in 1950. It reappeared in the Telegram in January of 1980. Okay, folks, that's going to do it for us tonight. Lee, bring it back to me. I want to thank those that called in and shared your thoughts and memories. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. It's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. Next week, we'll talk about an entirely different topic. I don't know yet what that is, but tune in. We'll be here with something anyway. Have a great week, folks. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to one another, and we'll see you next week with more Wayback Wednesday. Good night.